Okay, I'm going to have a real short video here in just a second, but I want to bring you one thing that I think is extremely prophetic, and I believe will play into what is going to happen in the future in the Middle East very soon. Now, as many of you know, if you keep up with my reports, you know that I believe that the United States is eventually going to make a deal with Iran. And when I say make a deal, I don't necessarily mean that they are going to halt their nuclear ambitions, but they will downgrade enough in order to satisfy the United States. And whether or not it satisfies Israel is irrelevant as far as the United States is concerned. Now, of course, this is speculation, but they're saying that a deal could very well be reached between the U.S. and Iran within 3 to 6 months. And it's probably going to take a little longer than that, but I do believe that it's going to set the stage for Iran's nuclear program to at least be pacified for all parties involved. And why do I believe that this is going to happen? Well, let me just read you a CNN poll that was just came out, and it says that 3 out of 4 Americans favor direct diplomatic negotiations between the U.S. and Iran in an attempt to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, with 21% opposed to the face-to-face. And as you know, President Barack Obama spoke on the phone Friday with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. This being the first conversation they've had, or between any diplomat between Iran and the U.S. since 1979. And this has raised many high hopes around the world that this Iranian nuclear problem could finally be solved. And one thing you need to remember, Israel's not the only one that fears Iran becoming a nuclear power. There are other nations in the Middle East, including Arab and Islamic nations, that are very worried that Iran may become a nuclear power, and one being Saudi Arabia. But don't think this is all about Israel. It's not. There's other nations in the Middle East that simply cannot have Iran becoming a nuclear power. That's just a simple fact. But I just thought I'd bring you this short report. This is just one more reason why we are probably going to see peace before we see war in the prophetic scheme. I know a lot of you are looking at the supposed prophecy of Psalm 83, which is, I call it a scenario because I don't necessarily believe it's meant as a war for these last days, and Isaiah 17:1. Now that I do believe is meant for these last days, but not now. I believe it's probably going to be more in line with something that will happen during the tribulation period, during the apocalypse of Revelation 6, verse 3 through 8, when 1/4 of the world's population will be destroyed. But I just thought I'd bring you this information because this is something that I believe is going to be very, very critical in the coming months and maybe sooner. And we'll keep our eye on this and see where it leads to. But I really believe it's going to lead to an agreement that is going to be a part of how the Middle East finally brings about peace in that region through the Antichrist. But as I've said all along, I believe that President Obama will bring the peace between Israel, or between the United States and Iran. But the Antichrist will eventually come on the scene and bring the peace throughout the rest of the Middle East, along with Israel. And as always, I'd always like to end with one thing, and that is if you don't know the Lord as Savior, your time is running out. We're staring in the face of the last days, and you know what? Even though you think you may have time, you don't. You don't know when the rapture of the church is going to take place. And that's the whole purpose of the rapture of the church. Throughout the church age, the rapture was never meant for the last days. The rapture was meant as a warning to all that they need to be ready for the Lord, because he could come back at any moment. And that's one reason why I can't understand why everyone thinks that the rapture is going to be at the end of the tribulation period, when it was always meant as a warning to all who were Christians to live a pure and righteous life in the Lord and to be ready. I mean, besides the fact that you can't place childbearing humans on the earth if it's a post-tribulation rapture, that the bottom line is the rapture was never meant to be a part of the last days. It was always meant to be a part of the whole entire church age, in which he could come back at any moment. But anyway, like I said, you need to be ready. You need to know the Lord, and he could come at any moment. And if he does, are you going to be left behind, or will you be taken with him? Well, the only way you're going to be taken is if you know him as Savior. You have a personal relationship with him. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.